Hello there. Warning for major spoilers for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Like, in-depth shit, as if you guys didn't already know any of it, because this is all I ever fucking talk about. I can be so trusted. Frankenstein is totally not an ever-present brainworm that I have that makes me make the choices that I make. It definitely doesn't make me chew and gnaw on the woodwork. That would be crazy. Okay, two things to get out of the way first. One, Frankenstein was originally written in 1818, but it takes place during the 1700s. We don't know exactly when during the 1700s, because it doesn't fucking say. It just says 17 and then it's like a line. I am working with the slightly edited 1831 edition, because that's what I had on hand. 2. Victor Frankenstein is not fucking British. I feel like people really like to make this motherfucker British. I know, that's what I'm saying. I feel like he's not. They live in Geneva for the bulk of the story. Victor Frankenstein is Genovese, as he says in the first sentence of his story. He goes, I am Genovese by birth. I think that's like the first fucking sentence that he says. Elizabeth Lavenza is Italian and German, but is raised in Geneva. Justine Moritz is also Swiss, but also kind of French. She has like a little French thing going on with her, and I don't know if that's like, I don't fully remember if that's like canon or if that's just me being like, she kind of seems like a little bit French. Victor Frankenstein speaks English, French, and German, at the very least. I also think he has some proficiency in Latin, like a fucking nerd, but we don't care about Victor Frankenstein, not right now. I do care about him, but we don't care about him right now. He's like a shaking, hairless dog who is hairless because he ate all of his hair off and then he pisses himself whenever he's spooked. So, yeah. And he makes bad decisions and is an ass, but he's not a master manipulator or a womanizer. That is a very important note. He just sucks ass. He's just a loser. Alright? I don't think he even considers misogyny as a thing. You know what I mean? The only person that he hates is himself. And also the creature. But like... Also, he doesn't even have sex. He dies a virgin. As he should, yeah. Listen, man, I'm asexual, so it's like... If you don't have sex, I don't really care, but I'm making fun of him specifically. Victor Frankenstein is not abusive. He's only abusive to the creature. And only verbally abusive. He's just kind of stupid and arrogant and self-centered and emo. That's kind of all Victor Frankenstein has going on. Okay. Elizabeth and Justine. Lock the fuck in, because I'm just going to talk about their lives for a while. Elizabeth Lavenza is the daughter of an Italian nobleman and his German wife. We don't know anything about her, the wife. She dies in childbirth. Then the dad gets sick at some point and also dies, leaving Elizabeth in the care of one of her servant families. The servants hit hard times and become dirty, filthy poors. They now reside in Italy near Lake Como, but thank God the Frankensteins are vacationing there. Caroline Beaufort? Beaufort? It's not Beaufort. It's Beaufort. Anyways, Caroline, Victor's mom, likes to look at the poors because she was once poor herself. And she sees Elizabeth and is like, whoa, that child is far too cute and blonde and perfect to be poor. Yeah, so she goes to the family and they're like, here's what happened to her, and recount the story of Elizabeth. And then Elizabeth gets like adopted by the Frankensteins. Victor describes it as, quote, Elizabeth Lavenza became the inmate of my parents' house, my more than sister, the beauty and adored companion of all my occupations and my pleasures, end quote. So, yeah. So Elizabeth is with the Frankensteins, gifted to Victor like a stray puppy. Her quality of life does improve, so we got that going for her. She develops a love for nature and art. Henry Clerval, and Victor are kind of like in a triangle of the three majors. Elizabeth is art, Henry is business, and Victor is science. Henry Clerval is Victor's best friend, his only friend. And then there's Justine Moritz. She was 12. We don't really know how old Elizabeth is, but it explicitly says 12 for Justine Moritz. 12 when she came into the custody of the Frankensteins. She's one of their servants and later the nanny of the youngest Frankenstein, William. She's the third of 4 children, and her mom is a fucking ass. Her mom turns against her when Justine's dad dies. To escape her toxic household, she begs Caroline to work for her. So there's that. We'll get more into the mom later. Scarlet fever. Sorry, let me say that again for the class. Scarlet fever. This fucks over everything. This is, we're talking about like the villains and we're like, oh, Victor Frankenstein is the real villain of Frankenstein. Wrong, it's scarlet fever. Elizabeth gets sick, and so Caroline attends to her and gets sick in the process. As we find out later in chapter 6, Justine was attending to Caroline while she was sick. Justine got sick in the process, but no one attends to her because she's say it with me, a dirty, filthy poor. So they don't really care about her. Caroline dies, and on her deathbed summons Victor and Elizabeth to tell them, quote, my children, my firmest hopes of future happiness were placed on the prospect of your union. This expectation will now be the consolation of your father. Elizabeth, my love, you must supply my place to my younger children. Alas, I regret that I am taken from you, and, happy and beloved as I have been, is it not hard to quit you all? But these are not thoughts befitting me. I will endeavor to resign myself cheerfully to death, and will indulge a hope of meeting you in another world, end quote. And then she dies. So she parentifies Elizabeth and then dies. And I think this is the true start of everything unraveling. I mean, Caroline dying is what kicks Victor to reanimate the dead. Like, he's so upset about his mom dying that he's like, man, this sucks. Everything pure in the world is taken from us from death. And if I can bring life, then I can stop that from happening. Yeah, and then Caroline dying parentifies Elizabeth in a really nasty and heavy way. She unloads a bunch of fucking guilt onto her because, I mean, like, if she died with her dying breath, she told Elizabeth to take care of the children. So if Elizabeth doesn't take care of that, she's going to feel really guilty and bad about it. Elizabeth calls the Frankenstein children our children in a letter to Victor. The letter, which is the bulk of chapter 6, is really interesting. Elizabeth is kind of detached and does not really talk about herself. She says a little bit, but it's, quote, my trifling occupations take up my time and amuse me, and I am rewarded for any exertions by seeing none but happy, kind faces around me, end quote. Elizabeth is never without anxiety after Caroline's death. Almost everything she does is described as anxious, which, real. Caroline dying is also the start of a series of unfortunate events for poor Justine. So she, like, recovers. Maybe. It's not really said if she recovers before this happens. It's just that it's after Caroline's death. And then her siblings fucking die. And her mom gets sick. So Justine cries and gets upset because she has to go back to her mom, who, when she's back with her mom, quote, sometimes begged Justine to forgive her unkindness, but much more often are accused her of having caused the deaths of her brothers and sister, end quote. Yeah, no, she fucking sucks. We don't like her. And then Justine comes back and almost immediately William is fucking murdered. Justine is blamed for his death because the creature planted evidence on her. We'll get into that later. Elizabeth bears the weight of the whole Frankenstein family, though, and she places blame and responsibility for William's death on herself, because of course she does. She is described as, quote, clasping her hands, end quote, and exclaiming, quote, oh God, I have murdered my darling child, end quote. Elizabeth's going through it. She had given William a locket with a picture of Caroline in it and believed the murderer killed William for that locket. The creature had swiped the locket and placed it on Justine when he killed William. Which, also, side tangent, the creature steals the locket and opens it and is like, and I beheld the most gorgeous woman I had ever seen. Seeing the portrait of Caroline is what prompts him to want, like a girlfriend or wife or whatever. That's like what makes him go to Victor and be like, I need someone who will, like, he says a mate, which is a disgusting word, so I'm not going to say it. But he's like, I need somebody, Victor, please. I'm so alone. And And Victor goes, kill yourself. Anyways. Justine's trial. She was composed during her trial. She was, like... She's described several times as tranquil throughout her trial. Elizabeth pleaded her innocence and defended her with her life, but it fell on deaf ears. Justine lied and said that she was guilty, but that's after she, like... So Justine first is like, no, I'm innocent. I've done nothing wrong. You can talk to the Frankensteins. They will vouch for my character. And then later, after she's convicted, she lies and says that she's guilty after that. She says that she's guilty so that she, quote, might obtain absolution, end quote. Justine, during this... Can I just read what she says? But this is what she says to Elizabeth and Victor while she's mostly just Elizabeth. Victor's just kind of standing there being like, oh my god, the creature that I created has killed my brother and is condemning this woman. Victor doesn't fucking say anything. So Victor's just kind of there and Elizabeth is like weeping at Justine. And this is what Justine says the night before her execution. Quote, God knows how entirely I am innocent, but I do not pretend that my protestation should acquit me. I rest my innocence on a plain and simple explanation of the facts which have been adduced against me. I hope the character I have always borne will incline my judges to a favorable interpretation where any circumstance appears doubtful or suspicious. I commit my cause to the justice of my judges, yet I see no room for hope. I beg permission to have a few witnesses examined concerning my character, and if their testimony shall not overweigh my supposed guilt, I must be condemned, although I would pledge my salvation on my innocence. I do not fear to die. That pang is past. God raises my weaknesses and gives me courage to endure the worst. I leave a sad and bitter world, and if you remember me and think of me as one unjustly condemned, I am resigned to the fate awaiting me. Learn from me, dear lady, to submit in patience to the will of the heavens. End quote. She is everything. I love Justine. It also, do you know what it reminds me of? Amen from Frankenstein, a new musical. I wrote a whole essay about it. Okay, Elizabeth is gay for Justine. Now let's talk about the important shit. Okay, so we're straying a bit from the hard canon of the summary, but in my defense, we can't talk about what happens after Justine's execution without this. So Elizabeth was a wreck about Justine being condemned. Obviously, I mean, everyone who was close to her was very upset, but they were more upset about William than Justine. Elizabeth seemed to care more about Justine's execution than William dying, but anyways. When she heard that Justine said she was guilty, she said that her faith and trust in humanity was destroyed. She was like, I shall never know happiness again. And I cannot trust my fellow man. Elizabeth does not stop fighting for Justine even when she's in the cell. Elizabeth tells her, quote, you shall not die. You, my playfellow, my companion, my sister, perish on the scaffold. No, I never could survive so horrible a misfortune. I wish that I were to die with you. I cannot live in this world of misery, end quote. Is that platonic or straight behavior? I don't fucking think so. So I just want to point out also that Victor refers to Elizabeth as his playfellow, companion, and sister, also cousin. That's all. And then Justine is executed and Elizabeth falls into the deepest depression she has ever fallen into, and she never fucking really recovers. Victor describes it, quote, Elizabeth was sad and desponding. She no longer took delight in her ordinary occupations. All pleasures seemed to her sacrilege towards the dead. Eternal woe and tears she then thought was the just tribute she should pay to the innocent so blasted and destroyed. She was no longer that happy creature who in earlier youth wandered with me. The first of those sorrows which are sent to wean us from the earth had visited her, and its dimming influence quenched her dearest smiles. End quote. Yeah, so even Victor, oh woe is me Frankenstein, recognized that she was depressed. That's a big fucking deal. And then Elizabeth goes on to say, quote, I no longer see the world and its works as they before appeared to me. Now misery has come home, and men appear to me as monsters thirsting for each other's blood. I feel as if I were walking on the edge of a precipice, towards which thousands are crowding and endeavoring to plunge me into the abyss, end quote. Yeah, so once again, Victor, oh woe is me, Frankenstein, notices her depression. So it's a big thing, and it's, if she's not included altogether in the story of Frankenstein, when Elizabeth is rarely included in Frankenstein retellings, her depression is not included, which I think is fucking crazy. Also, Justine Moritz, not included. They really like to erase women. They really like to erase. Also, Ernest. There's 3 Frankenstein children of, like, well, there's 4 counting Elizabeth, but it's weird. So there's Victor, there's Ernest, and there's William. Ernest is never fucking there. Ernest isn't even in Frankenstein, a New Musical. No one cares about Ernest, and it's kind of sad. And then that's kind of it for Elizabeth. Her wedding with Victor is negotiated without her. I hate Alphonse Frankenstein. I don't like, boo, boo, boo. Lots of thumbs down from the peanut gallery. From chat. Thank you, chat. Lots of thumbs down. So not only was Elizabeth's marriage to Victor pushed on her since she was adopted, and when Caroline dies, but Alphonse talks to Victor and says, quote, you were attached to each other from your earliest infancy. You stayed together and appeared in dispositions and tastes entirely suited to one another, end quote. But Victor is like trauma bonded to Elizabeth, so he agrees to marry her. But first he fucks off to England, of all fucking places, to make a woman because the creature told him to. So while Victor's gone, he gets a letter from Elizabeth with her last bit of agency. She writes to him, quote, we were affectionate playfellows during childhood, and, I believe, dear valued friends to one another as we grew older. But as brother and sister often entertain a lively affection towards each other without desiring a more intimate union, may not such also be our case? I confess to you, my friend, that I love you, and that in my airy dreams of futurity you have been my constant friend and companion. But it is your happiness I desire as well as my own when I declare to you that our marriage would render me eternally miserable unless it were the dictate of your own free choice. I, who have so disinterested an affection towards you, may increase your miseries tenfold by being an obstacle to your wishes, end quote. So I don't know if you could tell from that part, but she does not want to marry him. But she does. And it literally kills her. 2 more things to note before I get into the feminist retellings. 1, quote, through my father's exertions, a part of the inheritance of Elizabeth has been restored to her by the Austrian government. A small possession on the shores of Como belonged to her. It was agreed that immediately after our union we should proceed to Villa Lavenza and spend our days of happiness beside the beautiful lake near which it stood, end quote. And 2, Elizabeth is not happy after being married. Her depression persists. She says, quote, be happy, my dear Victor. There is, I hope, nothing to distress you, and be assured that if a lively joy is not painted on my face, my heart is contented. Something whispers to me not to depend too much on the prospect that is opened before us, but I will not listen to such a sinister voice. Observe how fast we move along, and how the clouds, which sometimes obscure and sometimes rise above the dome of Mont Blanc, render this scene of beauty still more interesting. Look also at the innumerable fish that are swimming in the clear waters, where we can distinguish every pebble that lies at the bottom. What a divine day! How happy and serene all nature appears, end quote. And Victor knows something is up because he says, quote, but her temper was fluctuating. Joy for a few instants shone in her eyes, but it continually gave place to distraction and reverie, end quote. This video essay is sponsored by Canada Dry, specifically the blackberry flavor. It's very good. Okay. Feminist retelling ideas. I have a lot of ideas about what to do with Elizabeth and Justine. Their original stories have themes of parentification, responsibility, and lack of autonomy. lack of autonomy is a big one for why people write feminist retellings. Decisions get made for them. They both get screwed over by Victor and Alphonse Frankenstein. They are both ultimately killed by Victor's negligence, selfishness, and pettiness, and neither of them did anything wrong, and yet they paid for the sins of the men around them. Really, really great stuff. Important notes about their characters, because if we change their personalities, then we are doing a bad job. I mean, kind of the important notes, I think, are that Elizabeth is selfless to a fault. She takes the blame for a lot of things. She's a little frantic and desperate when under pressure, and that's visible during Justine's trial and execution. And she's anxious. Justine is maybe a little naive. She's cool under pressure, and she's just generally composed. Which, I mean, already that's a pretty nice setup of anxious and composed. Elizabeth is not very self-assertive, but maybe that's something she learns during the retellings, is to be assertive. I don't think a little manipulative. For as much as I love manipulative women, I don't think Elizabeth, don't make that face. I don't think Elizabeth could be manipulative just because of who she is as a person. Yeah. Also, she used to be poor, and then her birth parents died, and I feel like we could talk about that more and touch on that more. And another thing is I'd like to explore Elizabeth mirroring / paralleling / whatevering Victor. They grew up alongside each other, and I wonder what kind of woman she could have been if Caroline didn't die. But Caroline dying is a non-negotiable because of, again, I said it kicks off all of the spirals and arcs and stuff like that. Caroline's death also fucks up Justine, making her lose one of the only people who loved her. I'd argue that Caroline was a parental figure to Justine. I'd do that. I'd also like to make the connection between Justine and the creature stronger, as per my essay, because I really like how they parallel each other in my essay. Anyways, and also in the canon, and then I talk about it in my other essay that I wrote. Anyways, okay, if I were to use an AO3 tag for this, it would be canon divergence, because all of my retelling ideas kind of follow the main canon and then diverge at some point. Also, all of my ideas are half-baked. None of them are very whatever. And this is the part where chat, you guys can talk and ask questions. Whoa! You get to talk! Okay, also, no sex! All of them, I make Justine and Elizabeth gay, but no sex. I hate sex. Not in a Christian way, or a purity or a prude way. I'm just ace, and I think sex is kind of dumb. Lots of cheering emotes from chat. And I'd go so far as to say that all of the characters are ace. I put in my script that I said I'm not going to say that. No. I am going to say that. Except for the creature. The creature fucks nasty. The creature's the only one who's allowed to have sex. I put a bit of a sex fiend in my script. None of my retellings feature sex, or sexual abuse or assault. Idea number 1. Justine comes back to life. Ooh. Okay, so I have a few of these. 1A, Victor of his own free will brings Justine back to life. Elizabeth catches him. Her and Justine find out the truth about what Victor has been doing. Maybe they suffer over whether or not to turn him in. On the one hand, he resurrected Justine. On the other, he did unethical science and was a fucking asshole. Elizabeth doesn't have her inheritance at this point, so they can't just run away to Villa Lavenza. Because, again, she gets that later in the story, closer to her marriage. That's when Alphonse negotiates for it, and she gets it, after marrying Victor. So there's that idea. 1B, Elizabeth forces Victor to bring Justine back to life. Similar concept to 1A. Maybe this is after he gets back from fucking off after Justine's execution. Elizabeth is mad, fed up with everything, and Victor is in a fragile state, so he tell her everything. The creature tries to claim Justine as his wife, and Elizabeth defends Justine. Maybe she kills the creature.
I like that one. That one's good.
Thank you.
That one's got a lot of intrigue.
Yeah. 1C, Elizabeth brings Justine back to life. While Victor is moping and being self-absorbed, as per usual, she finds his notes on how to create life. Mad with her own grief and depression over the loss of her loved one, Elizabeth exhumes Justine and brings her back. Maybe incorrectly, maybe losing herself in the process. Maybe Elizabeth is the one who's mourned instead.
That one's good.
I like that one.
Thank you.
I like that one.
1D, the creature, feeling instead remorse and shame for what he has done, brings Justine back to life. I don't really know. That there's just like a sentence for that one. Yeah.
I like the middle too.
Thank you.
I like the third one because women.
When?
I like the third one because
A self-driven woman who knows what she wants
I don't think
and
Victor
can do a
would,
man's job.
Yeah. I don't think Victor would actually fully bring Justine back like he did with the wife that he half-assed and then fucked off.
Yeah.
So I think that Elizabeth doing it makes more sense.
And then we get to see her going through Victor's notes and further paralleling him.
Yeah.
Like what I want. Yeah.
I do love the image of Victor's like in the background being like, oh my god, my life is so hard. And then Elizabeth is like
Yeah.
Frantic.
I
also like that in that one she doesn't have to rely on Victor for anything.
Yeah.
She just does it.
I do love the image that I have in my head of her forcing Victor to bring Justine back though, because it's very good.
It is very good.
It's a good image.
We could also combine the two where she tries to get Victor to bring her back, but then Victor's like, I know I'm not doing that, and then she takes over and does it herself.
That's
good.
No. Because then we get Victor mirroring Henry Clerval when they go to England, and Henry's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're doing fucked up science. And Victor's like, I have to, Henry. Because then we can have Elizabeth being like, no, I have to, and Victor doing like, no, you don't, stop that. You know?
Don't go down my dark path.
And Elizabeth going, I am, and I'm gonna do it better. Yeah. Just, idea 2. Justine never died. Smiley face. Elizabeth is concerned about 2A. Elizabeth is concerned about Victor. Through investigating him, the death of William, and the arrest of Justine, she finds out about the creature. She has a debate/dilemma about revealing Victor's secret to the court because she knows that she knows what will await him if she does. But after Victor continues to do nothing, even with people asking him, Elizabeth tells the court everything. Victor gets executed or something, and Elizabeth and Justine and Elizabeth are free.
I like that one because they get a happy ending.
They get a happy ending.
I do
Yeah.
like the happy ending.
Plus, then we get to have some like Phoenix Wright shit, you know, Ace Attorney.
Yeah, she gets to do investigation.
And then we can get to investigations. 2B, the creature feels remorse for killing William and turns himself in. Victor is like, what the fuck, and outs himself in his confusion.
That one's silly.
That one
makes sense.
That one's silly.
That one feels like something he'd do.
Yeah. 2C, jailbreak. Elizabeth version. She breaks Justine out of jail. Justine doesn't want to come with her because of, the canon stuff that she says. Elizabeth more or less forces her out of that cell, maybe with more desperate crying, pleading, the works. But then they're out and they have a happy ending. 2D, jailbreak Justine version. She breaks herself out of jail. She sneaks back to the Frankenstein's house to find Elizabeth in the middle of the night. She begs and pleads with Elizabeth to run away with her. Elizabeth says no initially because of her duty to the Frankenstein family. It is a hard goodbye. Like after Elizabeth says no and Justine has to leave, it's a very difficult goodbye. But then as Victor starts to spiral harder and the family falls apart more, and they plan her wedding without her, Elizabeth says fuck it and goes after Justine. Maybe she runs into the creature when she runs away and finds out Victor's secret. Maybe she invites the creature to join her and Justine away from vile humanity.
I like that.
I also like that. I like the idea of Justine, Elizabeth, and the creature having a found family of people fucked over by the Frankensteins.
They can have a tea party.
They can have a tea party.
And I also really like the Elizabeth saying no at first and then making the decision to leave, like slowly realizing how
Yeah.
genuinely miserable she is in this situation and making the decision to leave.
I also really like
Because
that.
then it's not like a snap decision, it's like a slowly, oh my god,
And
I'm
it's-
so miserable.
And like
Yeah.
all the other ones are also really good for their own reasons, but in like the jailbreak ones and stuff, she's like, well, of course I'm doing this to save Justine.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like she has to choose it for her own happiness.
Yeah. 2E, the testimonies work. Justine is found not guilty. Maybe out of frustration, the creature tries again to frame Justine or Elizabeth. And then I put big ol' shrug emoji. Yeah, I don't know. 3, Justine POV. I don't know. Most of my ideas are from Elizabeth's point of view. Be that first person or third person. I don't really fuck with first person, so more probably like third person, like following Elizabeth. Seeing stuff from Justine's perspective would be grueling and heartbreaking. And this could be its own thing or like an add-on to one of the plots I mentioned previously. Yeah, like a Jailbreak Justine edition would probably be from both Justine and Elizabeth's perspective. Like it would probably flip-flop between the two.
Yeah, I was thinking the flip-flop perspectives could be really interesting.
Flip-flop perspective.
Like because they're both in bad situations, but it's like very different, and like seeing it from both their perspectives would be very cool.
Yeah. 4. This one actually has a title. The Vengeful Bride of Frankenstein. Because this is the one I'm most excited about. This one is the rest of my script. Okay, so this one requires more yapping, first of all, for the setup. In canon, after Elizabeth wrote the I don't really want to marry you letter to Victor, he responded with whatever the fuck this is. Quote, I fear, my beloved girl, little happiness remains for us on earth, yet all that I may one day enjoy is centered in you. Chase away your idle fears. To you alone I do consecrate my life and my endeavors for contentment. I have one secret, Elizabeth, a dreadful one. When revealed to you, it will chill your frame with horror, and then, far from being surprised at my misery, you will only wonder that I survive what I have endured. I will confide this tale of misery and terror to you the day after our marriage shall take place, for, my sweet cousin, there must be perfect confidence between us. But until then, I conjure you, do not mention or allude to it. This I most earnestly entreat, and I know you will comply, end quote.
He sucks so much.
Yeah, hey, what the fuck is that, Victor?
No, I'm more sad than you.
I'm more sad than you, and I have a terrible secret that'll make you, like, piss yourself. But I'm not going to tell you, and you can't bring it up.
Also, you have to marry me.
You have to marry me to find out what this secret is. But this is important, because in canon, Elizabeth dies without finding out Victor's secret. 'Cause, yeah. In the song An Angel's Embrace from Frankenstein, a new musical, Elizabeth and the creature do have a little exchange before her death. She also doesn't scream in the world premiere cast recording when she dies, but she is described as screaming, which is what cues Victor that something is happening in the 1831 novel. Also, side note, but Justine in the musical is desperate during her trial. She is screaming, I am innocent, which she does not do in the 1831 novel. Anyways, my point being, reading the 1831 version makes us, the reader, think that Elizabeth dies without knowing what Victor has done. And Bride of Frankenstein isn't real. I'm so mad I get unreasonably mad when I see, like, Bride of Frankenstein stuff. That she's not fucking real. First of all, Victor didn't finish making the fucking woman. If you want to call that the Bride of Frankenstein. He doesn't fucking make that. He doesn't make the woman with the tall hair and the stuff. That's not real. First of all, and Elizabeth does get married to Victor, but then they fucking die and he doesn't reanimate her about it. Also, do you know why he doesn't finish making a bride for the creature? It's because somebody, not naming names, made the creature with a working dick and was concerned about reproduction. Okay. Yeah, and Wikipedia tries to say this character, referring to the Bride of Frankenstein, is introduced in the 1818 novel, which is a fucking lie. the real person to blame for this is the 1935 film Bride of Frankenstein. The story and screenplay are by William Hurlbut, who, fun fact, is now up there in the list of people who I hate. Fuck you, William Hurlbut! Fuck you, William Hurlbut! Anyways, my title for this retelling is accurate because I am actually talking about Elizabeth. Because Elizabeth is the Bride of Frankenstein. Because she marries him, and Frankenstein isn't the creature. If you're going to refer to him with a name that's not the creature or the monster, his name is Adam. Adam. Like from the Bible, because he's the first man. But I call him the creature because I think it's funny. Okay, so the story would follow Elizabeth from childhood. We would get to see her dad. We would get to see her dad. The nobleman he's from Milan specifically. We'd meet the servant family who takes her in. We would get to know her and the people she is later stripped from. We would see her mourn and how, despite how much she loses throughout the story of Victor Frankenstein, she never gets used to the feeling. We'd see Elizabeth grow up alongside the temperamental and highly emotional Victor. We'd see her struggle to adjust but slowly come to love her new family. Aiding the acclamation would be Justine, a young servant girl roughly the same age as herself, who also lost her father and left her siblings and old life behind. Because, yeah, Justine and Elizabeth do have that in common, and I like that, and I think we should talk about it. Justine is also another pet project of the Frankensteins, just like Elizabeth. And just as Elizabeth thought she was settled, she gets sick, and then Caroline, her new mother, gets sick as well and dies. Caroline then says the thing that she says, and Elizabeth's life is flipped all over again. And then she almost loses Justine when Justine gets sick. Elizabeth raises the children she had called her cousins. Cousins? Siblings? Yeah. She raises the man she was told she had to marry, because that's what happens in the canon is, yeah, it's great. It's weird. Lots of enmeshment. We watch her grow in anger and frustrations. We watch her stifle all of it. We watch her struggle to fill the gap Caroline left behind. She makes mistakes because she's only a teen herself, but she has Justine by her side through all of this. And just as she was getting the hang of it, Victor left for college. She doesn't hear from him. Then Justine grows distant as her siblings die off and her mother gets sick, so Elizabeth is left alone. Justine writes to her, though. She tells Elizabeth about how horrid her mother is and how much she misses Elizabeth. Justine returns. Victor writes a concerning letter back, and Elizabeth feels somewhat normal again. She can survive any bullshit, Victor or otherwise, if she has Justine. She goes out with Alphonse, Justine, William, and Ernest. Just a simple walk. Elizabeth and Justine get to have a sort of date. They take in the scenery. Elizabeth sketches some of the natural beauty and maybe a few of Justine. And they have an overall delightful time. But then William doesn't come back. They can't find William. Elizabeth runs herself into the ground with her panic. Justine stays up through the night looking for William. Ernest, who had run off with William, blames himself, and Elizabeth puts her own worries away to console him. Everything else happens so fast. William is dead. Elizabeth screams and blames herself. She didn't think when she gave him the locket. William didn't remember Caroline. Elizabeth just wanted to give him something to ease that. Victor returns looking worse than poor William's corpse, and then Justine is investigated and arrested. She has the locket. Elizabeth doesn't know what to think. We watch her as everything unravels. We watch her fall deeper and deeper into a depression. We watch her not know who to believe and who to trust. We watch her bite her tongue to stop herself from outing her and Justine during the trial. We watch her scream and tear at the walls. We watch her put it all away for other people in her life. The people Caroline, with her dying breath, asked her to protect and care for. But was she not a child as well? Was she not also in need of a mother, somebody to lean on? Justine accepts her fate, but Elizabeth cannot. She breaks down sobbing in that jail cell. She begs for her own death instead. She wishes she had said, "I love you," but Victor is there, so she doesn't, and the things she say kills her more. And then here we could probably insert the Justine jailbreak POV, because I think that would pair very nicely with everything else that I've talked about. But this version has Justine's execution, but we can also insert the Justine jailbreak POV from here. There's options. We watch Elizabeth lose herself after Justine's execution. She is a shell of her former self. The world doesn't have that same shine. Mankind is a bloodthirsty hound, and she is a lame rabbit. We watch her balance on that precipice of suicidal ideation. She wants to take the plunge. Victor is gone and is worse. Alphonse won't shut up about her marrying Victor. Ernest is trying to move on by thinking about college, the very thing that she lost Victor to. Everything reminds her of Justine. The empty space she left haunts Elizabeth. She tries to destroy those last drawings of Justine, but she can't bring herself to do it. In the same futile attempt, she writes... In some futile attempt, she writes a letter to Victor, but she doesn't really try very hard to convince him not to marry her. I think maybe she decides killing herself the night after the marriage. Or maybe not. But I don't know. She's kind of lost everything at this point, so what does she have? The letter from Victor telling her that he has a dark secret that he'll tell her later. He swears, boils her blood even more. She burns that letter. She watches the edges curl and char and get eaten by the flames. She will not grant him the satisfaction. He will know no comfort. She will not be his confessional. So, I mean, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why she decides. The wedding comes and goes. Elizabeth is apathetic. Victor is at the end of his rope. Not even rope, string, more like. He is paranoid and on edge. He barely allows himself a moment to breathe. It makes Elizabeth hesitate slightly. Is his secret really that bad? But her own thoughts of death plague her too heavily. Her dissociation, because you can't tell me that she hasn't been dissociating this whole time and doesn't have dissociation problems, is worse. But that night, when Victor goes for a walk and Elizabeth is having second thoughts about her death, a horrendous man breaks into the villa. He's 8 feet tall and his body barely wants him. They have an exchange very similar to An Angel's Embrace from the musical. She asks him if he's the one who killed William. She begs him to give her this one piece of closure before her death. He confesses. Elizabeth watches him move in to kill her, but it's like he's moving in slow motion. So, he's the source of her family's sorrow. No, he's the source of her sorrow. He is the reason Justine was executed. So Elizabeth kills the creature, and revenge feels great. Victor comes running into the room and sees Elizabeth standing over the creature. She's covered in his blood and is panting. Victor can't believe it. He falls to his knees and thanks Elizabeth for slaying his demon. She is not amused. And, hey, maybe Elizabeth forces Victor to explain everything with the most coldness she has ever shown anyone. She shows him no pity. If anything, she grows more and more infuriated. And then when he says that he knew how William died. He knew Justine was innocent. He knew everything. He was in control and he chose to save himself. And Elizabeth fucking snaps. She screams at him about how much she's had to sacrifice for the family who took her as though she were a stray on the side of the road. But she had a family before the Frankensteins. She was happy before the Frankensteins. She screams about how she has only known misery since that day. She curses Victor out for killing the love of her life. She blames him for destroying her everything. And she kills him. She goes to the authorities to say how someone broke in and killed her husband and she barely managed to defend herself. Alphonse defends her because of course he does. His son is dead, and he's been relying on Elizabeth just as much as the rest of them. Elizabeth stays in her villa, though. She lets Alphonse die alone. She lets the Frankenstein house fall into disrepair. She lets the servant family who took her in originally live with her in her villa with her as equals. She rejects the last name Frankenstein and reverts back to Lavenza. Or maybe she feigns remarrying just to give herself the last name Moritz. Maybe she gets a dog and names it Justine. To show her healing, she goes back into art and nature. I don't think Elizabeth would kill Alphonse. I think, like the creature to Victor, she leaves him to suffer with the choices that he made. I definitely think she supports Ernest and lets him vacation at her villa, because Ernest has done nothing wrong. I think she opens an orphanage and requires interviews for prospective parents. And I think she lets the poor adopt as well as the wealthy. I just want to give her a happy ending.
I really like that one.
That one's good.
Really good.
Very good.
Thank you. Because even though I said that... Because I feel like in that way, we have to, like, build to her snapping and killing people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She has to watch her entire life crumble around her, and she can't just immediately turn from killing the creature to killing Victor. She has to find out what Victor does first.
Yes.
Has done first. Yeah.
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 Very good.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you for staying around. I am very normal about lesbians and Frankenstein.
No, you're not.
Of course.
You're just blatantly saying, no, you're not. Great,
No.
thank you.
I simply do not believe you.
We only
Please,
speak the truth.
you only speak the
I mean,
truth.
neither are any of us.
True.
You're in good company.
None of
Yeah.
us are normal.
No, I am
about
not normal
lesbians.
about Frankenstein and lesbians. Those are my two interests. Yes, and if you want to read Frankenstein, read either the 1818 or 1831 version. There is a third version that was heavily edited by Mary Shelley's husband. We do not care for that one. Do not read that one. Oh, and listen to the musical. It deviates from the book in a few ways, but it's very good. And honestly, the most accurate adaptation I have found so far. And the lyrics are fucking great. The lyrics are incredible. If you enjoyed listening to my nonsense, please follow me on Tumblr. I am writtenbysmek.
Follow them. They have such good posts.
I have such good posts. I have such quality posts. And I also write not serious fan fiction. Bye bye. How does he go? He goes, "Hello there." That's what he goes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you mean who?
Obi-Wan Kenobi, motherfucker!
The hello there guy.
Victor Frankenstein.
Makes people think he's fucking British.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
That it.
But people love to make him anything but Swiss.
I mean, to be fair, Switzerland is like 4 different neighboring countries under one hat.
Yeah. But like they don't even make him
But
like
British is so far. That's
No.
so far off.
like I could understand like German.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like Germany, Austria, like okay,
Yeah.
alright, we're like closer. British?
British? Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Yeah. Where the fuck was I? Also, he doesn't even have sex. Thank God. The Frankensteins are vacationing there. She's gonna feel really guilty and bad about it. Yeah, oh, and Elizabeth is never really without anxiety after Elizabeth's death. Almost everything she does is described as anxious. Real, but also, what?
I think you said that wrong. I think
What?
you said Elizabeth has anxiety after Elizabeth is Elizabeth.
Sorry, yes. Where the fuck am I? And seeing Caroline's, like, miniature in the locket is what prompts him to want a big titty goth GF. Okay, sorry. Let me say that a bit nicer. So, guys, I really love Justine. I think she's so good. Oh, that fucked up the mic real bad. I really love Justine. She Sit down so I can continue. No, you can sit over here.
Oh, okay.
I still have a lot to go. I'm only on page 8 of 16. Oh, my dink! My fucking dink! Because I can't start a quote and then not say end quote at the end. Because otherwise everything I say is that quote, and I'm not saying that. Okay.
Yeah. Come here. I hold you hostage.
While staring dead-eyed at the camera, yeah.
Yes,
Do you know who I kind of look like? Also in this outfit plus haircut? Eddie Burback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Can I read this quote? It's so important. Okay. That's all. A little dink. Little dink.
Josie, you have to calm down. Calm. Hey. Hey.
I just want to talk about feminist retellings. That's all I want to do. No, Josie, get out of here.
She hates your little guy voice.
Oh, sorry. Should I use my deeper?
It's so scary.
What? What when I switch?
Your man voice.
Hey, my name is Trent, and I am I'm a little nervous. This is my first time doing stand-up.
This really has stand-up comedy energy.
I know. I hate it.
My mother.
Women. Oh, sorry. Women.
What's up with them?
What's up with women? I say, what do you want to eat? And she says, I don't know. So I propose some ideas. And then she's like, no, I don't want that. I thought you didn't know what you wanted.
I feel called out. Just kidding, I'm a feminist.
Haha, just kidding. I'm a feminist.
I gotta do a little jig first.
Do a little jig first. Okay.
Blood-covered women. I love blood-covered women.